The war was over, but peace never felt easy for Lyra Evans. She had turned 18 just a few months ago, yet her eyes carried the quiet look of someone who had seen too much. For 3 long years, she had served in the Earth Defense Force during the Zin invasion, a war that had turned cities into ashes and the skies into flame. Lyra had been only 15 when she first put on a uniform. She didn't fight because she wanted glory. She fought because her home colony on Mars had been one of the first attacked. When the war ended, she thought life would finally become simple again. No more sirens, no more metal skies, no more friends vanishing overnight. But peace was a strange kind of battle too. One fought in silence, without orders, and without purpose. Now she stood in front of New Horizon High School, holding a small student bag instead of a plasma rifle. The building was new, rebuilt after the bombings. The walls shined with fresh paint, but Lyra still saw burn marks under the layers, reminders of what used to be. Students crowded around the gate, laughing, chatting, and comparing digital badges. Their biggest worry was which club to join. Lyra wished she could be like them, carefree and loud, but she couldn't switch off the part of her mind that always listened for threats, that always watched for exits. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. Inside, whispers began almost immediately. "That's her," someone murmured. "The Omega Line girl." Lyra kept her eyes ahead. She had learned to ignore whispers. In the war, she had been a technician, the youngest engineer who kept defense drones alive while others fought. Soldiers had called her Little Shield because she once rebuilt a broken barrier generator with her bare hands and saved a dozen lives. Now those same hands shook when she tried to open a locker combination. In her first class, the teacher, Mr. Daniels, looked nervous. Welcome, Miss Evans," he said kindly. "It's good to see a hero among us." Lyra flinched at the word hero. To her, heroes were the ones who didn't come back. She found a seat near the window, far from the center of attention. The boy beside her had messy hair and a jacket filled with club patches. Astronomy, robotics, drone racing. He smiled easily. "Hey, I'm Theo. You're Lyra, right?" She nodded once. "Don't worry," he said quickly, raising his hands in mock surrender. "I'm not going to ask about the war. My uncle served too. He said people should let veterans rest." Lyra relaxed a little. "Thanks," she said quietly. Through the morning, she tried to focus on normal things, history lessons, lunch queues, gossip around her. But it was hard. The sound of lockers closing felt too much like rifle bolts. The drone of the school's cleaning robots made her tense up. After lunch in robotics class, the teacher announced the annual science fair. "Pair up," he said. "Build something that represents innovation and teamwork." Theo grinned at Lyra. "Team up with me. I know robotics, but you know field tech. Together we can win." She hesitated. Working with someone felt strange. In the war, teamwork meant survival, not grades. Still, she nodded. "All right." They began after-school sessions in the robotics lab. Theo talked a lot about engines, solar drones, and his dream to work for the Galactic Engineering Corps. Lyra mostly listened. She liked how he treated her like a normal person, not a legend or a ghost. One evening they stayed late. The lab lights dimmed to a warm glow as the city outside turned silver in twilight. They were testing the robot's brain, an old AI core Theo had bought from a scrapyard. "It's old tech," he explained. "Said to come from a military storage unit, but cheap and powerful." Lyra frowned. "Military tech isn't supposed to be sold." Theo laughed. "Guess someone didn't tell the junk dealers." They ran the code, and the monitor flickered. Strange symbols appeared, not letters, but flowing patterns of sharp lines and circles. Lyra froze. She knew that language. "Theo," she whispered. "Stop the program." He turned to her. "What's wrong?" "This code," she said, staring at the screen. "It's Zin script." Theo frowned. "You mean the aliens from the war?" She nodded slowly. Her chest tightened. "Where exactly did you get this AI core?" He looked uneasy now. "Just from a surplus crate near Dock 9. Why?" Lyra didn't answer. The screen flashed again and the lab lights flickered. The robot they'd built, small with sensor eyes, began to hum. "Did you activate it?" Theo asked. "No." Lyra's voice was sharp. "Back away from it." The hum deepened into a pulse. The robot's eyes glowed red. For a second, it scanned them both. Then it spoke in a low metallic tone. A voice Lyra had heard in nightmares. "Signal confirmed. Seed restored. Awakening protocol initiated." Theo's mouth opened. "What?" Lyra grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the door. "Run!" The lab's power went out with a loud snap. Alarms began to wail through the school. Emergency lights painted the halls in flashing blue. Lyra's soldier instincts took over. She pushed Theo into the corridor, checked corners, and moved fast. "What's happening?" he shouted over the siren. "That thing wasn't just a robot," she said. "It's a Zin sleeper device. They left hidden tech behind after the war, and now one just woke up." Theo stared at her. "But why here? In a school?" Lyra didn't know. But deep inside, she felt something old stirring, the same cold fear that had lived in her bones during the war. Security drones flew past them, scanning for intruders. The robot in the lab broke through the glass door behind them, its frame growing larger, shifting metal like it was alive. Theo gasped. "It's evolving!" "Keep moving," Lyra yelled. They ran down the corridor toward the shelter wing. Lyra's mind raced, analyzing, planning. She remembered the weaknesses of Zin tech, magnetic disruption and sonic interference. But she had no tools, no armor, just a school jacket and Theo's old tablet. They reached the supply closet. Lyra pushed Theo inside and locked the door. "We need a power surge," she said. "Something that fries its circuits before it spreads the code." Theo looked around and spotted a maintenance panel. "The school's cleaning bots use magnetic coils. Maybe we can overload one." Lyra smiled faintly. "Good thinking." They pulled one of the small cleaning bots from its dock. Theo rewired the battery while Lyra adjusted the magnetic node using a screwdriver she found. "On my mark," she said. "When it comes near, activate it." The footsteps, and metallic and uneven, echoed down the hall. The robot was hunting them. Lyra stood still, breathing slowly. For a moment she saw herself not as a student, but as the soldier she once was. Calm, focused, ready. The door cracked open with a hiss. The robot's red eyes appeared in the dark. "Now!" she shouted. Theo hit the switch. The cleaning bot released a burst of magnetic energy. Sparks exploded. The alien machine shrieked, a sound like tearing metal, and then collapsed, its red glow fading into smoke. Silence returned. Only the distant alarm kept ringing. Theo slumped against the wall, shaking. "We did it?" Lyra nodded, though her heart still raced. For now. She stared at the broken shell on the floor. Deep inside, she knew this wasn't an accident. If a Zin device was hidden here, it meant something, or someone, had planted it. Theo followed her gaze. "You think it's just one of them?" Lyra didn't answer. She looked out through the window at the city lights beyond the school, shining bright, peaceful, unaware. "No," she said quietly. "Wars don't end that easily. Sometimes they just change shape." Theo swallowed hard. "What do we do?" Lyra turned toward him, her expression steady and calm, the look of someone who had faced fire before. "We find out who brought that thing here, and we stop them before another war starts." The sirens outside faded into the cold night air. Somewhere far above, a drone passed, scanning the skies. Lyra stood by the window, her reflection mixing with the stars. For the first time, she realized that high school might not be any easier than the battlefield, and that her fight was far from over. The next morning, New Horizon High was filled with rumors. Some said a power surge had caused the fire alarm. Others whispered about a malfunctioning robot. But Lyra Evans and Theo knew the truth. A Zin sleeper device had awakened in their school. The military came quietly at dawn. Trucks without logos surrounded the building. Men in dark gray uniforms swept the halls. collecting the broken robot and scanning for residue signals. Lyra watched from a distance as officers sealed the lab with warning tape that read, "Classified." When a tall officer with a scarred jaw turned toward her, she recognized him instantly. Commander Hayes, her former superior during the Omega campaigns. He met her gaze, surprised. "Evans, you're still in the city?" "Yes, sir," she said quietly. "I'm trying to live a normal life." Hayes sighed, his voice lower. "Normal is hard when the past doesn't stay buried." He gestured toward the sealed lab. "We found traces of Zin neural code. That shouldn't be possible. The core war hive was destroyed." Lyra frowned. "Unless someone rebuilt part of it." Hayes gave her a long look. "We'll investigate. Stay out of this one, soldier." "I'm not a soldier anymore," she said. But when he left, Lyra's mind refused to rest. At lunch, Theo slid into the seat across from her. "They're saying the lab's closed for the semester," he whispered. And 3 students who ordered scrap parts online were questioned by security. Lyra stirred her drink without answering. She had seen too many cover-ups during the war. When something was labeled classified, it meant the truth was dangerous. Theo leaned closer. "You think they'll tell people what really happened?" She shook her head. "No, they'll hide it." He looked worried. "Then what do we do?" Lyra hesitated, then said softly, "We find where that AI core came from." That night, they met again in the robotics lab, the part still open for basic classes. The place smelled of ozone and cleaning agents. Lyra connected Theo's tablet to the network of scrap dealers near Dock 9. Using her old access codes, she bypassed the security filters. Theo watched the screen flash through lists of serial numbers and storage crates. "You still remember how to do all that?" "War teaches fast," she said simply. After a few minutes, she stopped scrolling. One crate ID matched the core's signature. "Here," she said, pointing. "Crate 7A registered to a company named Nova Salvage Systems." Theo frowned. "That's not a company I've heard of." Lyra nodded. "It's a cover name. These codes belong to an old research division that used to work for the Earth Defense Department. They built experimental drones." "So you're saying someone from inside the government might be reviving Zin tech?" Lyra's jaw tightened. "Or studying it again?" Theo leaned back, thinking. "Then we need proof." They decided to visit Dock 9 after school. The area had been half abandoned since the war, a wide industrial zone filled with forgotten cargo containers. When night came, the sky glowed faintly blue from distant city lights. Lyra wore a gray hoodie over her uniform, her old soldier boots hidden beneath. Theo followed, carrying a small scanner. The docks were quiet except for the hum of drones patrolling in the distance. They moved between shadows until they reached a warehouse marked Nova Salvage Systems. The front gate was locked, but Theo found a side door half open. "Lucky break," he whispered. "Or a trap," Lyra replied, checking corners before stepping inside. The air smelled of rust and oil. Rows of crates lined the floor, stacked high. A dim green light blinked from one near the back. Crate 7A. Lyra approached carefully. The lid was already open. Inside were pieces of machines, not human design. Thin black alloy plates etched with glowing blue veins. She recognized them at once. "Zin biometal," she said under her breath. Theo looked stunned. "They're harvesting alien tech." Before she could answer, a deep voice echoed from above. "Curious, aren't we?" Lyra spun around. A man stepped out from the shadows, wearing a dark coat, his eyes sharp. He wasn't a soldier. He looked more like a scientist. "I knew someone would trace the crate," he said, smiling faintly. "Especially you, Miss Evans, the Omega prodigy." Lyra took a step forward. "Who are you?" "Dr. Marin," he replied calmly. "I led the Division of Advanced Warfare during the Zin conflict. After the war, the Council shut down our research. But I knew better. The Zin weren't defeated and only sleeping." Theo's hands tightened around his scanner. "You're bringing them back?" Marin's expression was almost proud. "Not bringing, rebuilding. Imagine if we could control their power, machines that heal, adapt, evolve. Humanity could become unstoppable." Lyra's heart pounded. "That's what they said before the war started." "You'll doom us again." The doctor raised a small device. "You don't understand, child. Evolution requires risk." Suddenly, the crates around them began to hum. Blue lights rippled through the metal. The parts were linking, forming a tall humanoid frame. Theo whispered, "He's activating them." Lyra grabbed Theo's arm. "Back to the exit now!" But the warehouse door slammed shut automatically. Marin pressed a command on his wrist pad. Don't worry, my creation won't kill you. I just need its neural map to stabilize. The forming machine turned its glowing eyes toward them. Lyra recognized the energy pattern. Identical to the war hives, her training took over. She pulled a small EMP grenade from her jacket, one she had kept as a memento, now her only weapon. She twisted the dial. Cover your ears, she shouted. Theo dove behind a crate. The grenade flashed white, sending a wave of static through the air. The machine screamed and collapsed halfway through transformation. Marin cursed, shielding his face. You fool. You'll ruin everything. Lyra rushed forward and slammed the control pad from his wrist. The lights flickered out. Theo stood, coughing from the smoke. Let's get out of here. They ran for the back door and forced it open. Cold night air hit their faces as alarms blared across the dock. Behind them, Marin shouted, You can't stop progress. Others will continue my work. Lyra didn't look back. She just kept running. They stopped only when they reached the main street. Theo bent over, gasping for breath. That was insane, he said. You just fought a half-built alien robot. Lyra managed a tired smile. Old habits die hard. By morning, the government had sealed the entire dock. News networks called it a chemical leak. Commander Hayes visited Lyra again. You were there, he said quietly. We know. Lyra didn't deny it. He was rebuilding Zintech. Did you know about it? Hayes looked away. There are always people who believe power can be controlled. But the council will handle him now. Lyra nodded slowly. If you let them bury this, it will happen again. Hayes gave her a long look. Maybe you're right. Maybe we need people like you to keep watching. He left, but his words stayed. That night, Lyra stood on her apartment balcony, looking at the stars. The city was peaceful again, at least on the surface. Theo called her on comms, his voice cheerful but tired. So, he said, you're officially the most interesting girl in school. Lyra laughed softly. Not exactly the kind of reputation I wanted. You think it's over? He asked. She looked up at the sky where Earth's defense satellites blinked faintly. Wars don't end, she said. They just wait. Theo was quiet for a moment. Then I guess we'll be ready next time. Lyra smiled faintly. Yeah, next time we'll be ready. The comm clicked off. The wind moved softly through the night. Far away in the dark edges of orbit, something stirred. A faint signal repeating in Zin code, waiting for an answer. Lyra didn't know it yet, but her life at New Horizon High was only the beginning. She had survived one war. Now she was standing at the edge of another, one that would start not with soldiers, but with students, machines, and secrets buried beneath peace itself. She took a deep breath and whispered to the stars, Let them come. And somewhere beyond the quiet sky, the signal replied,